Hello, welcome back. This is Kevin McCain with Idaho Art Classes and Kevin McCain Studios. So today we're going to be doing the a basic mouth, some of the ideas and concepts of drawing the mouth. We just got through doing the mannequin for the front view, or drawing a head from the front view. And we didn't do the individual features. So this is for the individual features. If you're in my Beginning Drawing 2 class, this is the session 8, where we're starting off with the most basic, fundamental ideas of dealing with human features. This is just a very, very basic idea of how to draw a mouth. And so that's what we're dealing with today. Is we're gonna be drawing the mouth. Yay! The first thing about the mouth that we want to talk about is that when people draw a mouth, many times they'll talk about the tooth cylinder, and that is that the muzzle, if you will, that the mouth rests on is we're gonna do a circle. This is so far across from me, it's kind of hard to. So I like someone will talk about the analogy of a half an orange, where you actually have an arc going this way, and you have an arc going this way of the mouth. Or they'll talk about it as a cylinder, that you have. This is like the worst cylinder ever conceived of, but we have that this is cylindrical, and so the mouth is built on a cylinder. And that's an important concept to understand, because if we have a these corners are just killing me, but we'll just use our imagination and say this is a halfway decent cylinder. It's not, but so we're gonna have to use our imagination. But the idea is that since the muzzle, again, you can use the half orange scenario, which I like too, because that becomes very important when you start to deal with a three-quarter mouth, is that you have a double arc system happening on the face. But the idea is that if you have a mouth that's, again, built on a, in this particular cylinder, we can see the top. So that means that if we're dealing with the mouth is going to echo that same arc. And so even a mouth that's a frowny face, if we had like this mouth here, and we want to make it look like the mouth is frowning, even a frowning mouth is gonna, again, that starts to look like it's smile, right? Well, it's built on that arc that we think of as a smile. The only thing that's going to make it not seem like a smile is at the very end of this mouth is it's gonna curve into that frown, right? Really curve down into a frown. And so again, even a frown is going to be built on something that looks, again, like what we think of as a smile. It's got this little curve going this way, but it's the corners of the mouth that tug that mouth down again into that frown that's going to make it go, oh no, that's not a smile, actually, that's a frown. So even though this mouth is frowning, it's built on a structure, the teeth and everything are going to be these curves that echo this curvature. So if you had this frown that's, again, coming down, let's say this person had their mouth open slightly. Again, the teeth are going to conform to this. Again, the flesh itself, the flesh can be pulled by muscles. So that flesh can be pulled down again into this, again, sort of this, I guess if we had a frown, sometimes we'll get this, some people will see an arc through there start to happen. But even your frowns are going to be built on what essentially is a smile. And the same thing happens if we see this, we see a cylinder. And this is going to be with someone with their head tilted back. This is if we're seeing this person from above, or if they've tipped their head down. In this case, we're going to have someone that's tipping their head back. So now we have a cylinder that's, this is supposed to be the bottom, of that cylinder. So that right there is the bottom of the cylinder. That means this is the top. We can't see the top, we're seeing the bottom. So what does that mean? Well, that means, again, if this is tilted back, and again, if it was our little half an orange scenario, this would be a 3/4 view. This is the center line projecting out. We're just talking right now about this line. So if we were doing this, again, it was a 3/4 view, well, then we would start to have, whoops, that needs to, there we go around over there. There we go. This would then be lifting up this way, and then this would be coming across this way, like so. Okay, so again, this would be, again, someone tilting up, this is someone tilting down. That's, again, what this is supposed to be. And so the idea is that if we've got this, and, you know, we've got a mouth on there, again, the mouth is going to echo, you know, the cylinder, or in this case, the fruit, whichever. So even if there's a smile, the smile is going to be built on something that looks like a frown, right? So again, we're going to be depending on the corners of the mouth to then again pull this up into what is going to look like a smile. So even though it's built on a frown, again, the corners of the lips and the skin and the muscles can pull this up, but the idea is that the structure is one thing, even though the skin is creating something else. So even though, again, if we had a smile through here where they've opened their mouth like so, trying to get some of the perspective on this. So if this person is opening their mouth like this a little bit while they're smiling, even though this is coming up and the corners of the mouth are up here in a smile, you know, they've pulled these lips up again into a smile like so. Even though this mouth is coming up, the teeth again, once again, are going to be based on the structure, and the structure of this thing is this arc through there. So the teeth themselves are going to follow that arc as they go. You know, if this is the middle, you know, the bottom teeth, middle teeth, looks like someone's got, you know, braces on or something, but we want to understand this would be the lip. This is just supposed to be the division between the teeth. Maybe the teeth are open. Who cares? Or maybe this is just the top of the teeth showing, because again, you can't see the bottom of the teeth. But again, those teeth are going to be built on that arc, right? This teeth would be built on this arc, no matter what they're. So we want to be thinking of the structure and how the mouth is pointing away from us. Again, this is kind of a little hard to see. So right here would be, again, our little smile, right? Not quite symmetrical, but we're going to go ahead and just use our imagination once again and pretend that this actually is symmetrical. This is going to curve into a smile back here. This again is the top of the mouth, so forth and so on. Okay, so again, this would be the top lip right here, and this would be the bottom lip right there. That just, I used flat lines, so all of a sudden that flattens it out. This looks too dark to be back there where there are teeth, so I just got to get rid of some of that value because it's really a little disturbing. But again, the teeth would be built on the arc going this way no matter what the mouth is doing. It's about the structure. Now, a couple of other things to know about the mouth. If we've got a mouth we have what's called the upper lip, which is, well, what is that? We've got the upper lip, which is what we call the flat lip. So if this is, and if we're seeing this from profile, the flat lip comes in at an angle. Like so. All right. That's this lip up here. So again, this lip right here is coming back a little bit, and it doesn't curve as much. That's why it's called the flatter lip. Okay. So again, you want to go ahead and whatever. That's too tight of a curve, I'm afraid. But and then now it attaches. Okay. So we're just going to live with this. We'll say this is the upper lip, even though this is just a little bit too tight through there. This is the upper lip, the flatter lip, and because it's coming back in an angle, this lip is always going to be slightly in shadow. Okay. This is this little bean shape that happens at the corner of the mouth. So this is going to be, or a little node or nodule, you know, people will call different things, just depending on who you're talking to. But again, it's going to be a flatter lip. The bottom lip actually rounds out and into the light. So if this is the bottom lip, and we've got this light coming in from this direction, this is going to be going into shadow, and this is coming out of shadow. And sometimes you'll get a little bit of this a little bit of cast shadow right along here, as this lip is, because the light is usually from above, is going to cast a slight shadow on this lip. So sometimes it'll be sort of a dark, and as it comes out it gets lighter, and then as it hits this, it's going to be turning back and getting darker again. But this is called the round lip. So this is the try to use some. So this is our rounder lip down here, and it's rounder because it, you know, the way it actually projects forward as it then comes back. This actually looks like it's wearing lipstick, but we're just going to go ahead and deal with that. But so bottom lip is the round lip, the top lip is the flat lip. So the top lip is usually going to catch or be a little darker depending on its angle to the light. Normally the light's from above, so normally this lip is going to be a little darker than the bottom lip, not because of pigmentation, but because of the light, usually coming from above. So it doesn't matter where that light is, this is always going to be darker than this lip down here. Unless you have the light come up for, like this. Though it's not something we're used to. That's why when people light their faces from below, it makes us feel a little uneasy, because it's a way of which we're not used to seeing light happen on the face. So light coming from below changes the way we feel about what we're seeing. So that's all well and good, but what does that have to do with drawing a mouth? Well, I will tell you. So the first thing is, again, we're going to have this mouth. We're doing it from the front view, so we're going to go ahead and make this symmetrical, like so. We're going to pretend that this is a straight line, shall we? We're going to use our imagination. Or I can just come over here and straighten it out. And it's plenty long, so I don't need all that line. But the idea is that the mouth is symmetrical, and we're drawing this from the front view, so we want this to be, we want a center line. So let's say we decide, hey, our mouth is going to be, this is 2 eye spaces off the center. Well, then again, we're going to want this to be the same distance, and what we can do is bring a line that's supposed to be perpendicular across this line for symmetry, once again, because symmetry is the biggest problem that people have when they're drawing mouths and chins and noses and eyes. And because of that, some people, it's the bane of their existence to draw a front view. So back in the day when everything was done by hand, you'd have people like tracing it with tracing paper, flipping it over, double checking, putting transfer sheets and all this stuff underneath here to try to get it as as symmetrical as possible. You could certainly do that, and if I was doing some sort of illustration where it meant me getting 10 grand or not, well then yeah, I might go the extra mile. But for this, we're just measuring, is this distance here the same as that distance there? Why not? Why wouldn't we? Right? So again, when we're dealing with the mouth again has a curvature, and we're going to look for that curve. So we're going to say this is the curve of the tooth cylinder. Now we don't see a curve this way because it's supposed to be truly straight on. And if we look straight on, if we wrap a little piece of tape around an orange and you turn it just till it's finally straight on, it'll be a straight line. And then as it turns this way, the line will begin to bend. As it turns more, the line will bend out more and more, right? So this is looking straight on. So we have no bend to that. We can also, if we wanted to, we could actually, if I was having real problems with this, we could go ahead and put this again in a rectangle, and we could use a rectangle to mirror different points. I'm not going to worry that much about this particular drawing, so we're just not going to worry that much about it. I'm just going to go ahead and try to eyeball it corner to corner inside that rectangle. And now it's fairly. If we want to, you could bring like another, try to bring a shape in there like an ellipse or something, or like I did, put it in a rectangle and check it for its. If we want to, and I'm not going to worry that much about it, but we could put points on here, bring this over, check this point to that point, this point to that, get it all completely mirrored out. But we're not going to worry about this. The first part of the upper lip is that you have a little cleft, or a rounded V, if you will, to the mouth. Now we're not going to stylize. We're not trying to do cartoony lips. Whenever you're doing lips, be very, very careful of being concave. So if you start to do lips like this, they start to look very cartoony because you don't have convexities with lips. You wouldn't have that point either. It's just not something that happens with lips. So not realistic lips. Now if I was doing again some sort of extreme caricature, well, fine. But usually we're going to find that they have all kinds of convexities, meaning that in nature, comes back from the Renaissance, you never have something that does this, a branch off a tree. Let's say this is a branch off a tree. Instead of making it a convex curve, because that means you'd have a snap point, this would be a weakness. And so what they would do instead, and this was seen from nature, that in nature it's not actually a curve, it's actually these very soft, subtle convexities that create a curve. And this actually is more solid in terms of the way it's engineered. So we do the same thing on worst drawing of a tree branch you'll ever see, but the whole thing with this too is we're going to look for these convexities as we're drawing this mouth. We don't want anything that's truly concave. So, and again, we're not going to worry about this a ton. We're not going to ignore it either, but I'm going to bring a straight line, check it for its symmetry, bring this down here. This comes through about here. So again, I'm just trying to look right to left to check this for symmetry. It's not too bad. Is it perfect? No. But it's not too bad. We got something that's almost symmetrical here. So we have, kind of this, some people call this cushioned or what have you, but you have this soft little U shape, and again, sometimes people, to help with this, they'll bring a little, sort of like a little ellipse through here, and check out, where the edge of this is versus where the edge of that is, and they'll try to get the curvature in there just right. And we can certainly do that, but we're not gonna lose sleep over it right now. The biggest thing is that we have basically what some people have, like a long stretched M, they'll call it, Well, okay, yeah. Well, this looks kind of like an M that's stretched out. Um, if this is our two eye spaces on this side, and no, it's not two eye spaces. Pardon me. It's an eye space. So this would be one eye space here. This would be one eye space there. Two is not right. On the face, it's to the eye and then halfway down. So that's one eye space. That's one eye space. So I'm just saying I caught myself. I said two, but it's not two on this side. It's two altogether. And I just want to make sure that that's clear. But that if this is our eye space on the side, the pigmentation of this disappears before it goes into that nodule that will usually be just about, and it could be in a little bit. It's rarely going to go outside. It's usually, if anyway, it's going to come in a little bit on that. But and this is just where the nodule is created by where all the muscles kind of tuck, and it creates, again, this little nodule. Some people call it a bean shape, but it's something to look for when you're drawing people's lips, especially. Well, obviously we're talking about the lips. The bottom of the lip is a fairly easy shape. It's basically two angles. We have it coming down, and then it rounds underneath, and then it comes back up again. So so again, I'm going to try to make sure my angles on both sides by trying to get the same distance and have them come to the same place on the center line. Should get the same angle on both sides. And then we're just going to round. Let's see, this is going to start to round probably right through there. And we're going to round this through. Okay, so we have two basic angles where it comes down, and then it rounds over. Okay, so that's basically the bottom lip. Now, if we wanted to... And then the most important part is the space between the lips. This is just a straight line. That's not how it works. And again, everyone's lips are slightly different, but everyone has a muscle. Some people's are softer than others. But for the line between the lips, if it's closed, you're going to see kind of three very soft U's. This is a very soft U coming this way. This is the middle muscle. It overlaps that. This is then another soft little U coming this way. Look for that in your drawing of the lips, and so this again is the muscle between, pardon me, the line between the two different lips. So we have a U shape here, we have a U shape there, and then we have a soft little U shape here. Okay. So that's, we've got, that's our lips here. Again, the lips come and they turn and they fold under and into that crease, and then it goes into the nodule. This comes up, it folds over and into that, it becomes part of that crease, and then goes into the nodule. So, and usually this is an occlusion shadow where two things come together. So this right here, this little line between the two lips, is going to be the darkest, okay? So that's important to understand on our mouth. And maybe this is time to make this mouth just a little bit darker. Get just the right pencil, shall we? So let's see. So again, we come over here, and again, this would be a little darker through here. And this will overlap because this muscle's in front, this muscle's and back. This one then come down here, and again it's going to start to come into this little, and then the muscles fold around it, but this is the corner of the mouth. All that good stuff. This of course is going to come over here. This is then going to come down here, right into the corner of that mouth, right down here, and as far as that goes. Something about like that. This is not the nodule, this is just sort of, where these two tuck, it creates this little opening, and then the muscles are around there. And some tuck in while others, these are tucking under, and then these are coming out, so this will catch light, that'll get a little darker. Make sure we make that not concave, but convex as we're making this through here. Just that little bit about convexities can really help. Let me make sure I'm getting out of the way so you can see this. I keep leaning in because I'm trying to, you know, this is to my right, so my eyes are about, the middle of my eyes are about here, and this is again is to the right, so I can try to keep the camera out of the way. And of course, I'm a lefty, and I hate setting it at an angle because then you get, you know, parallax going on, you get distortion, camera distortion, and so we're trying to, you know, minimize the camera distortion. So here's your basic mouth. Now between the nose and the mouth, there's a little thing that can help us to indicate where to start. Now this should be, you know, halfway between the nose and the bottom of the chin. That's where the bottom of the mouth will go, thereabouts, on the process that we learned for doing the front view of the head. There's a little tie shape called the philtrum that comes down from the nose that can really help us look for, you know, where to start the mouth and stuff. This isn't quite symmetrical, and that's driving me a little nuts, but it's have to come down here. Then once it comes down here, then it has to change direction. This needs to go out a little further, I think, still. But anyway, so you know, obviously my obsessive compulsive is you know, I just, you know, I want to, you know, whatever. All these years of drawing, you go, oh, I can't live with that, and people are like, what do you know, leave it alone. You're like, I can't. You're like, just relax, relax. And sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. But again, we can go ahead and again, this is our philtrum, and again, at the end of the philtrum, that's where you're gonna, you know, is where your upper lip is gonna be starting. So again, you could start to, you know, put that on. And this again is the underside of this mouth. And if we look at the mouth, if we took there's a couple muscle clusters that you'll see if you took the skin off. That sounds always so brutal when you say that. But underneath here, there's these muscle clusters. And so you have two muscle clusters that are very prominent on the front of the mouth. And the thing that ties these together is fat and skin. And there's certain people you'll actually see the division. It's not common, but with certain people you'll see that division between those two muscle clusters. Whereas up here we have sort of three clusters. We have this is a muscle cluster right through here on the mouth. That's why we want to make sure that, and it's in front, so we want to make sure we have that overlap. We have another muscle cluster that is here, that's a longer cluster, that then comes down. It's a little longer, comes, you know, down that way. And so there's sort of these, some people call this the three nodes, where you can get, in some people's mouths, it's very, very prominent, where you'll start to see, again, a little bit of this push out for that node and then kind of straighten out a little bit. So sometimes you have people, again, with very prominent, where this little node here, this little muscle, you'll get a little bit of a bulge right through there. And of course this, you know, a little bulge through here, this is in front, and then another little bulge through there, again with that cluster. And sometimes with some people you'll even see a little bit of a reverse curve between these two lips. You'll get sort of, again, a reverse curve that starts to happen that helps to see these two clusters happening there. So there's stuff like that that's on the mouth we want to be aware of. We also, you know, again, if we have, if we're shading this, now again, if we had the light coming from this side, lighter on this side, darker on this side, there would be some of that going on. It also is a little lighter as it goes back into this corner. It'll get a little bit darker because it's turning away from us. The mouth is coming out into the light, and then it turns at some point, would go into shadow. So maybe this is the, you know, going into that more shadow side of the mouth. You know, so you'd have a lighter side versus a darker side. Gradation going from darker getting a little lighter. We don't really have that yet. So we come in here a little bit. But again, this is just like the nose and the eye. This is just structural. We're not here to really render this mouth. We'll do that later on other assignments where we're getting to, you know, separate, you know, into rendering and stuff. But again, a lot of times you'll have like a small cast shadow from this lip that will cast down onto this lip. And we remember that cast shadows are darker than form shadows. And so again, sometimes it can be very benign. Sometimes it can be very dark. Again, it depends on the reflected light. It depends on how bright the light is. There's things like that that are going to change this. And again, if this is cast shadow, but it's got to wrap around the muscles, so you can get these little nodes that will again start cutting into that cast shadow. This then turns into the light. Now we also have the front of this bottom lip versus the sides. This is the side, so it's going to be a little darker, getting lighter as it comes forward. This is again turning away from us, so it's going to be darker as it goes back. But this lip is the darker lip, so if this is this dark, that means this one has to be darker still. So again, it's all these wonderful relationships that we have with the mouth. This would be getting, again, so this would be getting lighter as it comes out. Now we're going to soften these notes because they're just way too dark. You know, or just, well, they're just too distinct, I guess is the word I should probably use. But the mouth also comes out and then it also starts to come down. So it comes out and then it goes back. So right through here, there's a transition point where it's coming out versus where it starts to, again, come back. And what will happen here, again, and these nodes this is, again, if they're really prominent, will start to make another appearance. But there can sometimes be a light cast shadow, not cast shadow, pardon me, core shadow, where things are round. There'll sometimes be just a very soft core shadow going around that mouth as it transitions from this projecting out this way, coming out this way, and then coming back down. This is what's happening here. And of course, it's nice and round while it's doing that transitioning. And so again, sometimes you'll get that core shadow, just ever so slight. Then this is supposed to be getting darker as it goes back there. This is supposed to be getting slightly darker. This is then a little lighter than this down here. A little stuff like that. This is white, so that's too much. So we have to put a little bit of value across there. That's just not. And you might say, well, yeah, okay, that's there. Sometimes there'll be a highlight. Now, when people go, well, not sometimes. Usually the lips will have a little bit of a highlight. And of course, if the person has something on their lips, like lip gloss or something, there's going to be more than just a highlight. But you got to be careful when you do the lips. Usually with details, people go a little bit too dark on everything to their detriment. Pardon me. And so, if you're not careful, people start getting into the lines of the lips. And if you make the lines of the lips too dark, it starts to look like, you know, a before picture of you know, some sort of sunscreen for the lips, or lip gloss, you know, whatever, some sort of protectant for the lips. And so you don't want it to look like that. You don't want it to look like this is the before picture, before the person started using stuff to, you know, protect their lips, because the lips start to look dry and cracked, and sometimes you got people putting stuff on there that starts to look like the Grand Canyon or something, or, you know, just painful. It hurts to look at the mouth. You're like, man, that person would be bleeding by now if their lips were that dry and cracked. And so you got to be careful. Now, we're not doing any of the detail on here, but I want you to understand that when you're dealing with, you know, again, realism, photorealism, the basic shadow shapes, the basic form shadows have to be there first, and that's what we're dealing with right now. So if the detail starts getting into the way of that, it will destroy form. It will destroy the illusion of detail. And I've seen some photorealists where you have people, you know, they're putting freckles and moles and little pores and little hairs, and everything is just so, you know, it's just so defined everywhere. There's no, okay, this is the primary detail. This is the secondary detail. This is the tertiary detail. It's just all treated the same everywhere. And I've seen faces that start to look like, you know, metal on a battleship or something, you know, or a rusted out truck. You know, is just way too harsh, and every little hair is a line, and so bright highlights that the hair begins to look like a Brillo pad or some sort of wire mesh where you think if you tried to stroke the hair you'd pull back a bloody stump, and so you want to be careful when you're dealing with that. You want to make sure that everything has the primary forms read, and then the secondary forms, like this is the primary, this is the darker lip, this is rounder, so it's going to be getting darker, a little lighter, and then if this is the shadow side, it's going to be getting darker, but then again this should be lighter here, this should be darker over here, right? This is the flat lip, this is going in, this flat lip should be in general, and it's not dark enough, it's parts of it are as light as that. So in general it has to be darker than the bottom lip. And so again, we didn't have that enough, so I had to push it down. I had to make sure that it's dark enough. And now it seems like it's the darker lip. So if that doesn't read right, we're in trouble. And then we go, is there a cast shadow there? This rounds out. As this starts to round around, is what's happening there? There's all this is, this is the lighter lip, but and then once we've got that this is lighter, and then this, as this rounds out, it gets a little, or as this comes over here, it gets a little darker. As this comes over here, it gets a little darker. It's still round. It does this. So it has to do that. Now I darkened those, and guess what? Now they're competing with this again. So it's constantly, if you change anything, keep your eyes open to how it's changed the relationship to everything around it. And then change it accordingly, right? And then for the secondary forms would be in here, okay, this has a plane here, and then sort of a rounded plane here, and then another plane on that side, and they would each have their own individual values that we have not addressed here. And you'd continue to put that on there. And then if you had, another part of this that was, if you're like, okay, well now I've got all these, where does this node start? There'd be all these subtlety that we haven't put on there yet. Once we've done that, those are the secondary forms. After that, we'd then be starting to put in the little skin textures and folds. But if they got too dark, it's going to look like someone attacked that thing with someone's lip with a Sharpie marker. It would be too dark. You don't want that. You don't want it to look like the lips are in pain. You don't want it to look like the details are too much. And I have that all the time. It's a common mistake. And those that are some of the best realists and photorealists understand that you still have to play the game. You still have to deal with form. And yes, they're dealing with more detail. Like an impressionist would be like, look, I don't care about the freckles on the face. I care about the basic structure. I care about the basic emotion. I care about the basic feel. But a hyperrealist goes, no, I want more than that. I want all the stuff, because to me it's, and sometimes you see these photorealists that have made, faces that are 10 feet by 15 foot canvas, and across the room, it looks like, the skin can, look very realistic from 100 feet away, 150 feet away, and you get close, and all of a sudden it starts to fracture, and it starts to look like stucco. Or it starts to look like, a brick wall. It's really, really rough. Again, it just feels really rough. And, so a lot of the photorealists from the 70s and 80s and 90s even, they were dealing with the abstractions of reality and dealing with all these games. But you had to be careful, because if you did it too much, all of a sudden your people started to look like mannequins. They didn't have any life left in them. So again, you have to, you don't want that as an artist. Hopefully, you don't want people to seem like they're just lifeless mannequins. You want to make this seem like, someone just, this is just coming to life and coming off the page. So this is a basic mouth. We have the flat lip. The lip is darker in general than the bottom lip. Again, this bottom lip doesn't seem to be in context of the two. Seems a little bit too dark in a couple places. The bottom lip is the rounder lip. It's coming up. We have the softened M here. We have the three little V's there. I haven't really gotten into the overlapping, but where these overlap, there's a slight change in value. Because of that nodule. Where this comes in, there's going to be a slight change in value. That's all that secondary stuff. We're not dealing with that. We're just dealing with the primary stuff. We then have, the two muscles here, the three muscle clusters up there. We want to make sure that we have, again, that, the fact that this has an arc to it, because it's built on again on the tooth cylinder, or I like the half orange analogy as well. But they both work. The idea, well, this works only if it's in a front view. But once you go to a 3/4 view, well, then you're going to have an arc of the muzzle going this way, and then you're going to have an arc of the muzzle going this way, and this would be the center line. So if you're building, you know, a mouth, now this one might be coming out because this one comes out, this one comes in, and you're going to have projection happening on here. Now if this was the case, you're probably going to have a mouth. Whoops, there we go. A mouth that's again going to be in perspective. It's a 3/4 view on this mouth. This again would be the one coming in. That's what this was about, to say, hey, this should be coming in. So I'm trying to think, because this would be a flat line. So now we're projecting it in and coming out. So this is now going down and in. And then this one I put an angle right there to say, hey, that one's supposed to be projecting out. So then we say, okay, well this, and it's going to be round. So now we'll round this a little bit. And by doing this, we'll have a mouth that will feel like it has more a roundness to it. This is then going to have this little node a little bit around the corner. So that's, you know, as far as this goes, it would come here and this would come around the corner. That would be in line, which means this should lift a little bit. And I'm just thinking about this because I've done a lot of mouths and even, you know, invented a lot of mouths, which is a little bit harder to do. But I'm trying, you know, I was trying to get the little nodule that you're going to see. Just if this was the case, you'd only see that little bit of this nodule around the corner, because it's a 3/4, and this would also want to be coming out this way and projecting. You want to make sure that this is projecting. So again, you want to make sure that the volumes are right as you're dealing with a mouth in a 3/4 view. And these are just structure lines that go, yeah, this is coming out, this is coming out, this is coming out, and then this is coming up and attaching. And then this is coming out over here and attaching. And again, so you'd have this, not the, you know, 3/4 mouth, that again, where you're getting just a little bit of the perspective, the foreshortening that happens. Right, so it's a same idea. We still have the M, though it's a little bit different now. We actually will see a little bit of this start to come in here and turn under a little bit, especially right under here. Okay, and then again, this will again come out and turn out and come out from there a little bit. We'll see a little bit of that happening. But we still have, and again, this would be where this nodule is coming up, this nodule is coming up. You know, this one's here going around the corner, the muscle here coming down here. We'd have these two muscles here. This is supposed to be the center line of the lip, is what that's supposed to be. So we'd have, you know, this nodule over here and that nodule over there. And I think this needs to, there we go, going up too quickly. But anyway, so we could draw this mouth. Again, sometimes you'll get a little bit, some people you'll get a little bit of that. There's a convex curve, and with some people that'll be pretty distinct, especially in a 3/4 view. And then you come back down here, this is the space coming back down, and then you'd have the chin, right? Back here. That's not enough room, I don't think. Come here, this would then come onto the chin. I think we need just a little bit more for the chin. And the chin would actually be a little wider in terms of its, there we go, there's the sides of the chin. Okay, so this would be the front, these would be the sides. And then you could, you know, whatever, bring that into the jowl or what have you. But this is, you know, the idea of creating a mouth in a 3/4 view, using again the projection of the muzzle and such. So again, try to use these ideas and concepts when you're drawing the mouth. Remember, we've got the soft end, we got the 3 U shapes through here. We have this, which is basically 2 angles and then around, 2 angles here and around. Again, as we start to go into the 3/4, we start to get the projection. This would be going up the middle of the philtrum. This philtrum would start to have, you know, a little bit of a, you know, come back a little bit, coming back towards the face a little bit, as far as that goes. This was originally our center line just to help us with the drawing. And again, now that we've got it, we could go ahead and erase it, right? But this is the idea of using, again, this idea of the architecture of the mouth to draw better mouths. Once you're used to drawing mouths like this, well, then we can start doing harder things where we start opening up the mouth. If we start opening the mouth, you know, like this, well, then that would also, the lip would come down. And, you know, the jaw, you know, if they've opened the mouth, the jaw would come down. Now, if they relax the mouth, well, then the mouth would just open a little bit, and then this would come down also a little bit. So again, you just start thinking about how the mouth would change as it projects. This would be where you just let the muscles, you know, relax. And usually if you relax your mouth, there would be a slight opening in there. And that means this would come down a little bit. If you actually drop the jaw and actually open the teeth, well, again, the lip would come down and the jaw would come down, you know, so as well. So as we think structurally about the mouth, it can really help us with our drawings.